Last month, I sold $2 million worth of equipment to a major company. There's no way Kevin could handle a job involving that kind of money. It's frustrating dealing with Thomas. It's like wrestling with someone who won't listen. I've given up trying to reason with him. But then, I heard that Thomas got engaged. His fiancée, Anna, is a beauty who could compete in pageants and was the talk of the university. I never thought I'd meet her again as my sister-in-law. Since that day, Thomas has been smitten with Anna and has been giving me a hard time. After the tragic accident that took his first son's life, he came up with something outrageous. "I'm going to marry a widow, Anna. I'm going to divorce you. So get out." "Fine. Here's the divorce papers," I said. I didn't hesitate to write them. This is my one-way ticket back to my life, and I have to file it myself. I'm Mirabelle Smith, and I'm turning 35 this year. This all happened before I got married. I worked at my father's company and planned to leave once I figured out what I wanted to do. Until then, it was a good place to learn the basics, as my father suggested. Everyone knew I was the boss's daughter and kept their distance. Even after being there for a while, my relationships with colleagues didn't improve. I was always just the boss's daughter. I sometimes regretted joining my father's company so casually because I didn't need to job hunt. I wished I had taken job hunting more seriously. Then someone who blew away all my regrets appeared. "I'm Thomas, new to the company. I still have a lot to learn, but I'm looking forward to working with you." I never imagined that Thomas, who had just joined, would become my husband one day. Right after Thomas joined, I was having lunch alone at my desk during the break. "You're not going out to lunch with everyone, Mirabelle?" "No, I brought my own lunch." "Really? Your lunch looks tasty, Mirabelle." "It's nothing, just leftovers in a Tupperware," I replied, looking back. I think about how awful I used to be at talking to people, but Thomas spoke to me in a way that blew away my uneasiness. "I'm hopeless with household chores, so I really respect that you can manage them. Also, the orientation manual you created was really easy to read. It shows your attention to detail." For the first time, I felt like someone at the company really saw me. "Thank you, I'm glad you said that." "I'm glad too." You finally smiled. That conversation was a turning point, and I started talking more with Thomas. I've encountered countless fleeting relationships in this job, but there was something special about Thomas that set him apart. Moments that click in life aren't frequent, but I was sure of it. I might just marry this man, I thought, as Thomas and I grew closer despite our busy work schedules. Seeing his smile and earnestness made me want to be by his side. Marry me despite all my flaws. Yes, gladly. Dating someone you truly love and getting married was surprising even to me. Back then, Thomas had just joined the company, but he quickly stood out with his pleasant demeanor and precision in his work. One day, I overheard a conversation in the break room that shocked me. Thomas was confidently telling a colleague, "I'll earn big and provide for you, Mirabelle. I want you to be a stay-at-home wife." At that moment, I felt an unpleasant premonition, but I couldn't just break off our engagement over that alone. I could have walked away and pretended I didn't hear it, but I wanted to know Thomas's true intentions. So I showed my face and said, "Thanks, but don't overdo it." Thomas then looked at his colleague with an expression that seemed to say, "See what I mean? A woman who quietly walks 3 steps behind her man is just right for me." Not long after this incident, I handed in my resignation and became a full-time housewife. I might be biased, but Thomas is passionate about his work and seems to have the skills to take over the company in the future. He was kind to me, so I believed we would live happily together and grow old. However, that expectation was shattered all too easily. Thomas changed once we got married, quickly showing his true colors. Now that I'm a full-time housewife, he probably thinks I can't escape. Thomas leaves everything undone, ever thinking to do housework on his own. He leaves food where he ate, doesn't clean up, and won't tidy the areas he dirties. If I look away for a moment, The room I just cleaned gets dirty again. If I leave it, he scolds me for the mess. When Thomas is home, I have to follow him around as the house quickly becomes a disaster with no space to even step. "Hey, could you at least wipe up the places you've dirtied?" I asked. Thomas snapped back. "Why? That's your job as a housewife, isn't it? Don't you see I'm deliberately not doing it to avoid taking your job?" "That's ridiculous. I'm doing this for you, for your growth. Don't you see how dismissive that is?" Thomas sighed heavily and let out the last thing I wanted to hear. "I married you because you were the boss's daughter, but I didn't expect you to be this troublesome." The only person who had freed me from the curse of being the boss's daughter was Thomas, and I felt betrayed by him. "So, if I weren't the boss's daughter, you wouldn't have married me?" I asked. Thomas replied with a click of his tongue. "I had to get married for credibility with clients, given my age. Plus, marrying the boss's daughter is bound to be advantageous in the future." He forced me to cut off the conversation and walked away. Lately, it bothers me how Thomas has to dominate every conversation, looking down on others as if they are beneath him. He's especially harsh towards his own brother, Kevin, always trying to prove he's better. Kevin has been involved in mechanical research and development since graduating from grad school, so they're not even on the same playing field. Kevin is just a bookworm. I would never want to be like that. It's uncool and lame, Thomas often says, perhaps out of an inferiority complex, emphasizing how he's superior in the corporate world. I sold $2 million worth of equipment to a major company last month. Kevin, always stuck in his numbers, couldn't handle a job involving that kind of money. I'm sick of Thomas always comparing himself to Kevin, boasting about his own superiority. Then one day, at the age of 45, Kevin got engaged. The couple, who met through an acquaintance, hit it off and quickly decided to marry. We were invited to meet the bride's family as Kevin's brother and sister-in-law. "Kevin is getting married? That can't be true. She must be nothing special," Thomas grimaced when he heard the news. "Getting married now. He must have just thrown money at some young woman because he's scared of being alone." It's hard to know how to respond when such strong disdain is openly displayed between brothers, but we decided to go to the meeting anyway since it was a special occasion. When we saw Kevin's bride-to-be, Thomas was at a loss for words. "Wow, seriously, she's as beautiful as Mirabelle and the same age." Thomas was speechless at the bride's beauty, and so was I. Anna turned out to be someone we both knew from university, where we were in the same major. She was always a standout, participating in beauty pageants, and often approached by people on the street. I never thought we'd meet again after all these years, and I was surprised for a different reason than Thomas. Kevin's smile said it all. He was thrilled to be marrying Anna. At the beginning of the meeting, there were signs of nervousness, but gradually, smiles that couldn't be hidden started to overflow. However, as the meeting progressed, one person's expression clouded over, unable to feel happy. "How did Kevin get such a beauty?" "That's impossible," Thomas muttered. After returning home, Thomas, irritated and alone, threw a box of tissues. "Well, they were attracted to each other when they were introduced, weren't they? Why would a plain bookworm like him get to marry such a beauty at this timing?" "I don't know that, and she has been in beauty contests and even on TV, you know." I was thinking how Anna's beauty and fame had not faded when Thomas's frustration turned towards me. "I married you because you were the boss's daughter, but what a letdown. I rushed into a bad deal." "What is that supposed to mean? Isn't your only asset being the boss's daughter?" I felt like crying from his harsh words and attitude, but held it back. It must have been about half a year since we attended that joyful wedding when I received the news that Kevin had suddenly passed away. Apparently, it was an accident on his way home. It's a situation often seen in dramas or novels, but it feels unbearable when it happens to someone close. Just after attending his wedding, now it's his funeral. What about Kevin's funeral? Think you can make it? I expected more complaints, but Thomas's response was surprisingly different. Since it's the last time, I guess I'll go pay my respects. Plus, I'm worried about Anna. Thomas seems restless, looking around like a child during a school open day. Hey, what's up? You seem restless. No reason. Come to think of it, I started to notice something was off with Thomas right after Kevin got married. At first, it was just a slight unease. Women's fashion brands and trendy cosmetics started popping up in conversations. Recently, he's been wearing branded items and even perfumes he never used before. Hey, what's up with you lately? It's none of your business. A man needs to keep up his appearance. I get that grooming is important, but what's this receipt about? I showed Thomas the shopping receipt. All this shopping, restaurants, jewelry, sweets. What's the deal? Why are you snooping around? Just stop it. You leave it out in the entrance for all to see and then say not to look. So, can I ask what this is about? Thomas started to fumble for an excuse. Look, it's for entertaining clients. You know, I thought I'd make an early investment for the future. I couldn't conclude anything yet and didn't want to dig myself into a hole. I decided to let him play his hand a little longer since I needed to gather more evidence. Unaware or not of how I felt, Thomas began to hurl terrible words at me. Hey, what's with your look these days? What? Is something wrong? I've always thought you didn't stand out, but now your belly is starting to sag. You're nothing like Kevin's wife. Thomas had a look of satisfaction, as if he got one over on me. It's the truth, right? Are you pouting because I hit the nail on the head? Being a homemaker doesn't mean you should let yourself go. Despite this, I had admired him when we met and felt joy at being able to marry him. I never dreamed I would be the one to suggest a breakup, but it seemed Thomas had his own thoughts. One day, as I stood up to bring in the laundry, our doorbell rang at an unusual time. It was 5:00 p.m., way too early for Thomas to be home from work. Welcome home. You're early today, I said, opening the front door, surprised to see him. It didn't take long to notice something was off. Are you going out somewhere? What about dinner? Thomas's expression was different from usual. Before I knew it, he had a piece of paper in front of me. Sign this, he said. Realizing he was presenting me with divorce papers, I spoke up. A divorce? What happened? Is something wrong? Thomas sneered. I'm going to marry the widow Anna. You need to get divorced and leave. I was taken aback. I never dreamed Thomas would drive me out. He waved his hand dismissively, shooing me away like a dog. You're just in the way if you keep standing there, he said, trying to enter the house. I grabbed his arm. Fine, I said, and without hesitation, I signed the divorce papers. Thomas insisted on marrying Kevin's widow. I saw no reason to stop him. Once Thomas sets his mind on something, he's stubbornly inflexible. You file it. I'm busy. Okay, got it. I'll take care of it. With a determined look, Thomas said something outrageous. I'm going to remarry Anna and make her happy. I'm confident I can make her happier than Kevin ever could. You can manage on your own, but Anna can't. Well, maybe if that's what you think. I was tired of the hassle and just nodded along nonchalantly. I didn't have many belongings to begin with. Who would have thought that not being materialistic would come in handy like this? Is this really happening? Am I the one who has to leave? Of course. Why should I, the head of the Smith family, be the one to leave? I was shocked he was still saying such things. At the same time, I realized that nothing I said would get through to Thomas anymore, so I made my decision. The furniture arrives tomorrow, and I've cleared out the nuisance. Now everything's set for Anna to move in. It's going to be busy. Thomas was humming a tune and dancing around, ignoring me. I quickly left the house and returned to my parents' house for the first time in years. I had been living as a homemaker just as Thomas wanted. I decided to stay with my parents for a while to figure out how I would live moving forward. They were initially surprised but warmly welcomed me, accepting my decision, for which I am truly grateful. I thought I might as well try the popular work-from-home trend, and it surprisingly suited me well. I could work at my own pace and in my favorite place without dealing with annoying workplace politics. Here, I'm not the president's daughter. I'm just a freelancer. I feel fortunate to have discovered work from home due to my divorce. One day I went out to a cafe in the city for a change of scenery. The cafe, known for its beautiful view, is one of my favorites. It's quite busy on weekends, but today, being a weekday, it wasn't too crowded. In the quiet, I was relaxing, reading a book, and listening to music when I heard voices arguing. It was 4:00 p.m. on a weekday, a typically peaceful time. I lifted my head, wondering what was happening. I recognized the faces and heard the exchange, though I wished I hadn't. It gave me a headache. Today I've come prepared to make you happy. Forget about Kevin and be happy with me. Will you marry me? Thomas was proposing to Anna, holding out a ring. I never expected to witness Thomas proposing to Anna. Surprised by the sudden event, I hid my face behind the magazine. I watched, holding my breath. Anna stared at the ring box and finally spoke. Me and Thomas, she said with an innocent smile, lightly waving her hand and laughing. She took the ring box, opened it, and said, "Oh, I thought you might feel this way about me. I had a suspicion, but really." She took the ring out of the box and held it up to the light. "Do you think I'm the type of woman who suits this luxury brand?" "Of course, Anna. You're beautiful, and Kevin was not worthy of you. Forget about him and be with me, won't you?" Anna quietly placed the ring box next to her coffee. "Is this ring secondhand? You put it in a branded box, thinking I wouldn't notice. Do you think I don't know anything?" "No, that's not it. I just wanted to protect your smile. That's why I got divorced." Anna sighed softly, pointing at the ring. "At first glance, the box seems genuine, but this ring looks like it came from a pawn shop or recycled shop. Did you think I wouldn't notice?" Thomas seemed at a loss for words. Anna continued pressing the point. "Don't underestimate me. First off, the brand of the box and the ring itself don't match. The ring and stone don't fit the rank. You probably bought just the box on some app and picked up the contents from a pawn shop, right?" It seemed I hit the nail on the head as Thomas began to falter. I almost burst out laughing from behind my cover. "What? Why? And most of all, this part is evidence you tried to erase the previous engraving and repurpose it for proposing to me, right? A proposal ring in a luxury brand box, but the contents are secondhand. That's so typical of Thomas, always caring about appearances, but lacking substance." At Anna's words, Thomas stood there speechless, unable to respond. Suddenly, the serious expression on his face turned foolish. "I work in the jewelry industry, so I know a thing or two. Did you really think you could fool me with such a clumsy attempt?" "No way Kevin could have caught a woman like that," Thomas muttered to himself, biting his nails. Anna added insult to injury. "I've been meaning to say this, but you're the one who kept sending gifts unilaterally after I married Kevin. I've told you several times to stop because it was bothersome. Did you think? Was I that kind of woman?" "No, of course not. You think I don't understand anything. That's why you do these things, and that's why I can't come to like you." Suddenly cornered, Thomas became flustered. "But my love is genuine. I love you, Anna, and that's why I wanted to help you." "Help me? I never asked for your help, did I?" Anna looked perplexed. Trying to attract attention with gifts or a man suddenly coming forward saying, "I want to help you," and then opening a box with a ring. "I love you so much I can provide a better life than Kevin could." Despite his self-centered assertions and tears, Anna found them utterly unrelatable. "That's exactly it. Really, it's impossible with you." Thomas started to say something, but then covered his mouth with his hand. Thomas, it's always about you. Who wants to live with someone like that? Because I work for a well-known company, I can provide a comfortable life. If you just do a part-time job at the supermarket, that'd be enough, Thomas said. Anna put her hand on her head and sighed heavily. What? Just a part-time job at the supermarket? Or did you prefer being a housewife? Well, that's fine too. Thomas spoke as if making a concession. I hate people who impose their ways on me the most. Kevin never once imposed his ways on me. He was gentle, and he respected me, Anna said. Surprised by Anna's words, Thomas suddenly stood up. I silently watched as the chair clattered and rolled away. Really, it's his broad-mindedness and supportiveness that I loved. That's why I had no doubts about marrying Kevin. And of course, he never interfered with my career after we got married. Anna took the ring in her hand and glared at Thomas. I work here as a jewelry designer, believe it or not, so I can't tolerate how someone like you handles rings. And as a person, you're nothing compared to Kevin. What? You think I'm inferior to Kevin? Thomas had always belittled Kevin. I can do better than him. There's no way he can do something I can't, he'd often boasted. It was clear he looked down on Kevin. When we were dating, I liked Thomas's confident demeanor. But I had begun to realize it was all a facade. He had dragged along his trivial tales of bravery from his student days all this way. He was like the emperor with no clothes. I know how to live my life, and I didn't get married just to have someone make me happy. Do you think women get married because they can't live on their own? What error are you talking about? Who are you looking at when you talk? Because you're not seeing the person right in front of you, Anna said firmly. More than anything, I married because I loved Kevin and wanted to be with him. It hurts to feel that's been insulted. Rejected outright by Anna, Thomas became defensive. What? Who would want a strong-willed woman like you? Damn it, Mirabelle never did things like this. Grumbling, Thomas left the cafe. He passed by me for a moment, and I thought he might notice me, but he left without seeing me. A few days after witnessing that scene between Thomas and Anna, it was about a week since I had presented Thomas with the divorce papers. The phone kept ringing so persistently that the sound seemed to stick in my head. What was his intention in calling? I had been ignoring the calls completely, but finally I decided to check the call log on my smartphone. When I saw Thomas's name all over the history, the scene at the cafe came back to me. Despite the terrible premonition, I decided to answer the call. Hey, are you doing okay? Thomas sounded uneasy. I'm managing, thanks to you. I'm relieved you finally answered. Can we meet for a bit? There's something I really need to say in person. In person? What is it that can't be said over the phone? But Thomas pressed on. Look, I know I've caused you a lot of trouble, Mirabelle. Given his insistence, we agreed to meet at a diner near the station. He appeared worn out, his fatigue evident, wearing a crumpled shirt at 6:00 p.m. He must have come straight from work, but thinking he had been at work in that state made my head ache. As soon as we sat down at the diner, he immediately brought up the divorce papers. So, about those divorce papers from that time, you haven't filed them yet, right? I wasn't surprised by his approach. Thomas is that kind of man. When things go against him, he tries to twist the facts stubbornly, but not everything can be manipulated by his whims anymore. However, Thomas can't accept that. He can only measure things from his own perspective and convenience. Look, Mirabelle, if you want, I'm open to reconciling. You're still holding on to those papers because you're unsure, right? Thomas gestured impatiently, as if to hurry me up, but to me it made no sense. However, I quickly came up with a response. If you're talking about getting back together. That paper? It's nothing but the divorce papers. If it's about the divorce papers, I filed them right after we separated. Yes, I went straight to file them a week ago. What? You didn't have to file them the same day just because I said so. Thomas appeared flustered, but that was none of my concern. Did you forget about the divorce papers you thrust at me, saying you were going to marry Anna? I haven't forgotten. You know it was the heat of the moment. He tried to pass it off as a joke. You haven't changed at all. At over 30, it's unlikely that a man would change just because he's told to. After being apart from you, Mirabelle, I've realized I can't do without you. You're the only one who truly understands the real me. What are you even saying? I felt nauseous listening to Thomas's self-absorbed rants. Look, it's only been a week, so I haven't told work yet. If we cancel the divorce, we can go back to our old lives. It'll be great for both of us, right? Both of us? What did you just say? So, if we cancel the divorce and go back to living in our old house, it'll be like nothing happened, right? You wouldn't want to trouble the boss, would you? You really don't understand. I sighed deeply and finally told Thomas, canceling a divorce just doesn't happen. Also, I'm consulting a lawyer about you kicking me out of the house. A lawyer? That's an overreaction for a little misunderstanding. It's you who's mistaken. After your brother disappeared, you tried your moves on Anna. When rejected, you think we can just go back. It's disgusting. I haven't forgotten that you kicked me out. Thomas started sweating profusely. Also, did you forget that the house is mine? My parents gave it to us as a wedding gift in my name. No, I thought this kind of thing usually becomes the man's after marriage. Your lack of sense is beyond words. Regardless, the fact that you kicked me out has really hurt me, and I've asked a lawyer I know to proceed with it. This isn't a threat, but when he realized a lawyer was actually involved, his voice faltered. What are you proceeding with? You'll probably get a notice from a lawyer soon. Isn't it ridiculous to involve a lawyer over something so trivial? Thomas didn't seem to understand how unfavorable his position was. And one more thing, I have this document, I said, handing Thomas an envelope. He opened it, looked inside, then crumpled. You're kidding, right? Inside the envelope was a list of novelty items and supplies that had been stolen from the office. You can't say you don't remember this. Perhaps it was also meant to secure money to buy gifts for Anna. Stop making accusations just because I'm the daughter of the president. You snitch on me. Cut it out, he retorted defensively. I was annoyed by Thomas's reaction, but it was the truth. How could I possibly report on the current office situation when I'm not even there? I don't know who told, but it's clear that it's something you shouldn't do as a professional. Even though I was no longer involved with my father's company and didn't know the exact internal situation, I had noticed my father looking gloomy at home. He must feel betrayed as a father. You still don't understand the position you're in, but I guess with your mindset and common sense, you'll never understand. What do you mean by that? Are you serious? Yes, my parents are also aware of this. They know we're divorced too. Are you just realizing that now? After that, Thomas had nothing to say and hung his head. I didn't want to waste any more time. Without looking back at Thomas's table, I left the diner. In the end, everything about Thomas, from the divorce to other matters, had become completely exposed. My father, who had given the house as a wedding gift in my name, had contacted Thomas. Thomas had left the house quickly due to the awkwardness. Bad news travels fast, and Thomas's misdeeds had spread not just within the company, but also to clients and related companies. The company probably couldn't forgive his actions, left unchecked. Reassigning Thomas to a window-side department was meant to protect the company's reputation. Once seen as a promising employee due to his marriage to the president's daughter, Thomas found himself struggling as a deputy leader in a rural area. He faced constant criticism from leaders and complaints from below, pushing him to his mental limits. Despite his complaints, he kept working because he had no other job prospects and needed to pay alimony. It wasn't my department anymore, so I didn't concern myself with his problems. One day, while waiting near the clock tower at the station, I saw Thomas. Actually, he saw me first and started heading my way, glaring with such intensity that I was terrified and couldn't move. "Hey, you've messed up my life because you were so serious about submitting that divorce paper," he shouted. I couldn't understand what he was saying and just stood there. "Are you listening? Because of you, I ended up in the company's shabby housing and got shifted to field work. It's been horrible. Talk to your dad for me, will you?" He really thought that talking to my father would solve his problems. What a blissfully ignorant mind he had. Just then, I heard the voice of the person I was waiting for. "It's the same story again. I brought the police, so don't worry." Anna, seeing Thomas approaching me menacingly, had called a nearby police officer. "Sorry I'm late." From a distance, I saw that Mirabelle was in trouble. "Thank you." If Anna hadn't called the police, I wouldn't have known what to do. I was too scared to move. "Really, thank you." "It's nothing, really. Besides, I wanted to have a proper chat with you, Mirabelle, not just as in-laws, but as friends." "Me too. Shall we go then?" Anna and I continued our long-overdue chat over drinks. We had endless stories from college days to now, becoming in-laws, parting ways, and deepening our bonds in such a fascinating way. I'm now enjoying my life, having forgotten all about Thomas. Life without his troubles feels surprisingly carefree. I've managed to get my freelance work on track and am living quite satisfactorily. I'm no longer living at my parents' house, but enjoying my first solo living experience. Initially, my parents contacted me every day, worried, but now the frequency has decreased, and we've found the right balance. Sometimes I still ponder what that past was all about, but it's pointless to dwell on it. I want to cherish my fulfilling life now.